Hi, I'm Jay Messina, Director of Marketing at Proterra, and welcome to what would have been day one of Sapphire Now 2020. I'm joined here today by Proterra's founder and Chief Technology Officer, Patrick Osterhaus, as well as Proterra's Chief Product Officer, Alan Manuel. While we miss seeing you all face-to-face in Orlando this week, we figured the next best thing would be to bring our live in-booth demos and customer presentations you would have seen on stage directly to you virtually by offering these 20 to 30 minute sessions today, tomorrow, and on Thursday. While your travel plans this week may have changed, your SAP Cloud transformation plans probably haven't. Especially over the past few months, we've seen firsthand the power of running critical systems on the cloud, whether to support your mobile, global, and remote workforces, to pivoting production seamlessly to meet demand, and to ensure system-wide security and resiliency. However, you may not have the hundreds of hours or resources and time that it takes to build a business case over the next few months for moving to the cloud, HANA, or S4. Today, Alan and Patrick will show you how to simplify this process using an intelligent, automated approach to see, feel, and understand the cost, timeline, and project plan for your desired future state of your SAP systems. Alan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
As Jamie mentioned, really with the current situation, I get a lot of questions of whether we're seeing projects slow down, kind of stay as is, or accelerate. And I think one thing that we're learning is the companies who have made the move to the cloud, as Jamie mentioned, are really now seeing their planning pay off by continuing to operate their businesses and even grow their businesses in the face of this immense change that we're all under. Over the last few months, we have seen a pretty consistent pattern of where companies are in their SAP and cloud migration plans. So I'm going to show some data here before we get into the demonstration. As you see here, about 46%, so about half of the companies that we've talked to or individuals who've come to these webinars are active now, actively pursuing some kind of a transformation or migration of their SAP to the cloud. About a quarter are looking to start within the next 12 months, about 6 months, 12 months. You see the kind of an even split there. And then about 1/4 are still in the research phase. Now, of course, I'd love to understand where those of you in the audience are. If you want to put your answers in the chat of kind of when your project plans are, that would be great. And we'll continue to update this as we continue these talks with customers who are looking at moving their SAP to the cloud. Okay. Now, a little bit about Proterra. Proterra has been in the business about 20 years, helping customers get the most out of their SAP, helping them transform their SAP from their current state to the next generation operating platform, which of course today is the hyperscale cloud. We focus on those migration or transformations, have done over 500 of them, and then also helping customers optimize and run their SAP on the cloud with over 1,500 systems under management. We're a certified global hosting partner with SAP and have strong partnerships with the cloud hyperscalers like Microsoft and Amazon. Finally, I'm going to talk about Proterra FlexBridge. That is our operational platform that Patrick's going to show you. That's how we help deliver our results and help customers make their transformations and migration saving and their apps management, saving up to 50% in both the cost and the time to move to the cloud and operate on the cloud. All right, now, why do companies undergo their SAP transformation? Really, there's 3 categories of transformations that we look at, which is the as-is, the HANA, and S4 HANA. And we're going to cover those second 2 tomorrow and Thursday, but today we're going to focus on the as-is. And often what we see is customers wanting, for some business change, for some reason, to move their SAP as quickly as possible to the cloud. So we have an example here of a customer that was looking to carve out their existing business from a larger business, needed to move very quickly their core SAP and some non-SAP applications to the cloud without making much change. And that's what we call the as-is case. We're going to cover that today. We also often see customers who are looking to consolidate or simplify. They've made perhaps an investment in HANA as their analytics platform, and they want to say, if I move to the cloud, is there a way to simplify, combine my disparate systems, and have a better, more efficient view of my data? So that's really the HANA transformation, which we will cover tomorrow. And then finally, we have customers that are looking to implement the newest functionality, streamline their workflows, give their users a better, more modern mobile environment, and generally upgrade the user experience that they're delivering. That's really the S4 HANA transformation, and we're going to cover that on Thursday, okay? So today we're going to take that first case, that as-is case, and we're going to go through a live transformation planning. Now, Jamie, these are the kind of questions that we normally get from customers. First, can I just move to the cloud? Can I do it? Is it possible? What are the risks? And what is my footprint going to look like once I'm on the cloud? The second set of questions we get is around the impact. What's it going to take in terms of time, cost, downtime? How long is this project going to take? And then finally, give me a glimpse of the future. What's it going to look like once I'm running my application on the cloud? Granted, it's as is. I don't want to change too much, but I do want that agility, that flexibility that I'm going to get on the cloud. What's that going to look like? So these are the three kinds of questions that we normally get. And so I'm going to turn it over to Patrick in a moment, and we're going to walk through an example of a customer. And this is very typical of a customer who says, you know, I'm looking to improve my cost structure. I'm looking for improved reliability. I'm looking for agility. I want to see what my application is going to look like on the cloud. And you know, go ahead and create that plan for me. So in this case, we're going to take an example of a customer who has SAP ERP, SAP BW, and Bob JBI. This will be a non-HANA transformation. It's an as-is. The customer will have HA and DR. It's a 10 terabyte database environment, and it's 1,000 users. So this might be a sort of a middle-sized transformation, and we're going to actually go through and create this transformation and see if we can answer these questions that we have there on the left. Okay? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick, who will then, as soon as I stop sharing here, he will then take the screen and show us the Proterra FlexBridge transformation platform. He'll show us what that information looks like and how we put that plan together for this customer. Over to you, Patrick. Patrick, you're on mute.
Yep, it looks like I'm on mute. I'm unmuted. So thank you, Alan, for the good introduction, overview of FlexBridge. We're going to show here how we can do a very quick solutioning, very high level in just a few minutes.
Great. And now, Patrick, the first thing the customers, prospects on the phone might want to know is, where is my information? So we said there were certain SAP applications, certain instances, certain technical information. Could you show us that in the Proterra FlexBridge tool?
Absolutely. So we start off with the assessment in the discover phase, and that is around scoping. So we can put in all the landscapes the customer has and do a discovery of what those systems are. Is as simply as just adding a checkbox of what system for all the SAP applications they have in their landscape.
Fantastic. And HA and DR, are those also selected somewhere on your screen?
Absolutely. So we can select those for not only SAP environments, but also for non-SAP. So we'll designate those and do a discovery on those.
Great. And there was some other information about 10 terabyte database environment, 1,000 users. Is there a way to have that additional information captured by the FlexBridge tool?
Absolutely. So once we do the scoping and find out what systems we want to discover, there's a myriad of ways that we can actually collect that information. We can actually provide this information from getting the system information from Excel that the customer will provide. We can also provide an agent to collect that information. And once that information is uploaded into the system, we can actually summarize that and show the sizing of those systems. So very quickly, within a few minutes, we can collect that information for the size of the system as well as how many users.
Now, the first question is, can the customer move as is without making many changes? And then what are my risks? I guess that's two questions. First of all, can the customer move as is in this case?
Absolutely can. So what we want to specify is foremost where they want to go in Azure. So that we're going to put in the primary and secondary regions, following best practices about how we're going to architect those solutions.
And Patrick, this tool works for the major cloud providers, but we're using Azure as an example here to meet the time constraints of the webinar, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can architect it for the public cloud hypervisors. We're showing here for Azure. So those regions I just showed are specifically for Azure around the world, not just North America. And to answer your previous question, Alan, we can certainly support as is. It's shown here for each solution that we designate. We're going to have an option. And today we're going to show as is, move to cloud. But in fact, in tomorrow's webinar, we're actually going to show a transformation going to HANA. So we'll actually show for ERP going scenario of going to HANA or S4.
That's great. Now, what are my risks? Is there any prerequisites or steps that need to be taken before I move to the cloud in this case, or any sort of warnings that the system might give me?
Yep. So I previewed this already, where we're going to summarize all the source information you can see for all the landscapes, ERP, BW. Here we have mini. It's going to summarize the operating system and database and all the versions. And then we're going to take a look at all the data automatically in FlexBridge and compare that against very important rules that are our teams built over time. It's best practice supported and provided by SAP as well as Microsoft for Azure. And we're looking at those rules, comparing against the metrics and seeing where there's issues. So for example, we can see if the operating systems the customer has are fully supported, which in this case they are for another 4 years. So that's good. We also look at issues that could be a problem that we want to get resolved before we do the migration. For example, I'm looking at the database versions. We can see this customer has a compliant or a recent version of DB6. It passes, yet they also have an old version on a system that would not be supported anymore. So we got to get that patched.
Great.
Upgrade.
So once I understand and overcome these sort of preparatory issues, the next step, the customer wants to know, what will my cloud footprint look like? Is that going to be a complex step to understand all the different server configurations and what's certified or allowed or possible from SAP, or in this case, Microsoft Azure? How would you see the cloud footprint?
In the past, it certainly was complicated. It required consultants to go on site and identify and size those systems properly. Now with the tool, we can actually import that data, as I just showed, and instantaneously it's going to auto solution that. So it's going to look at not only where it's going to be architected in Azure for the respective regions for disaster recovery systems or production systems, it's going to also auto size them. So it's going to look at the respective VM that is recommended for Azure. It's going to have recommendations on target sizing for RAM and VPU, as well as the build of how those systems should be done to best practices by Microsoft and by SAP.
This looks like a lot of information, Patrick. Is there maybe a simpler way? Let's say I have to make a presentation to my colleagues about what my future state architecture is going to look like. Is there sort of a more traditional architecture view that we could see here using this method?
Absolutely, and I'll zoom out a little bit just to to show everything on this architecture, because there's quite a bit of systems here, many landscapes. What this is representing automatically, it's going to give us a diagram in the Azure architecture for their best practices of how it should be architected for scalability, for performance, and security. So it's showing the multiple regions as well as multiple subnets for protecting those internet services from your production SAP systems.
Fantastic. So if this is what the future looks like, what's going to take to get there? Can you give us a view of maybe the timeline or the cost, or let's talk about the downtime? Give us a view of what that actual transformation project is going to look like.
Absolutely. So upon importing that source information, it not only auto sizes all solutions, what it's going to look like, and provide the diagram, it's also going to provide our recipes, essentially how best to move that system, those systems, depending upon the target architecture. We're going to make a recommendation of how the transformation occurs. Here it's showing that we're going to do an export-import of those production and those SAP systems into Azure. It's also going to provide the timing that's going to be what's typical for a customer. Obviously, we can add additional steps for more testing that would affect the project plan, but this is automatically generated as we adjust the requirements. And it's also
okay, so this is sort of a step-by-step view of each individual item that you're going to transform during that overall project, along with the associated timelines. Is that how to understand that?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. What else? I see roles and responsibilities. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, so we want to educate the customer on what's important for their functions, what they will need to provide and resource they need to provide through this transformation. So this includes the sign-offs, the testing, and being privy to all the updates that are happening in their systems as they move to Azure. So it's going to show this from a roles and responsibilities.
Great. Now, a very important question that always comes up is, now that I understand my architecture, what is it going to cost? What will my investment look like once I move to the cloud?
Mm-hmm. So the next phase actually we show in the tool is exactly that, and that is pricing for the infrastructure. So this is showing for all the VMs, each VM in the solution for the respective regions, because region pricing will be different. It's going to show it with best practices around storage allocations, as well as recommended backup sizing. Now, backup sizing can vary. This is to our best practices. And it's going to show that those pricing, that's the street pricing today, as well as it's going to provide the pricing for 1 year and 3 year reserve. So it's going to give a very good high level overview of cost to run that infrastructure, with even optimizing it with paying it in advance with the reserved instances.
Now, in this case, we had a kind of a straightforward example, but in reality, customers are always looking for options. If I move part of it today and I move part of it in phase 2,
Yes.
how difficult is it to iterate through this process? For example, to provide different source information, maybe make some different selections. How difficult is that then to see what my new architecture would look like, what my new cost would look like, what the new timeline would look like? Is that a lengthy process?
No, it's very, very simple, very fast. And that is, we just go into the data that was already shown, either in the target environment, we can change it there. We can add systems, we can change the sizing. We can add phases into the project plan. We'll automatically recalculate the project plan, the pricing, if there's a change in the infrastructure. So it's all real time. Those adjustments happen instantaneously.
Fantastic. So if we're looking at the transformation plan, and I've kind of been watching the clock, it's been about 10 minutes. In about 10 minutes, you've put together the source, the target, the actual step-by-step method, the timeline, some risks and dependencies, the cost of the migration, as well as what my predicted Azure cost would be. So really that's fantastic. Of course, this was a simplified example, but in this case, this is an actual transformation plan for this example customer, and this is actually what they would experience and what it would take. Is that right?
Absolutely. And yeah, as you said, it's a simplified architecture. There's about 15 systems here. We've done this for up to 400 servers, providing the solution in a few minutes.
Okay, now I'm just going back to the questions. What kind of improvements can I expect now and in the future? So give us a view of once this customer is up and running on Microsoft Azure, what is that future going to look like in terms of, for example, better transparency into how my SAP is operating, better view into my key performance indicators, more agility to do things in more of a DevOps fashion? What will that future look like?
Great question. I skipped over a lot of phases of the software, including provisioning and operational of those systems once they're built and the transformation itself. I skipped over to the run phase, and that is the ops piece of looking into the exposing and surfacing that data of those systems around availability of those systems, the performance of those systems, as well as the capacity. So we can drill into any of these areas and very quickly see, once the systems are aware and seen within the Azure cloud in the services, we can present that data to the customer so they can see during transformation as well as through operations how those systems were performing. So we provide metrics around every system type that they provide in Azure, as well as many metrics that we can go back over many months.
Okay.
Throughout
so this is really providing a modern view into my SAP. So the greater insight into how things are working is one of the advantages. I'm sure there's probably other things like automations or other technologies that are deployed underneath the covers here that we don't have time to mention today, but this is sort of a glimpse into what the future would look like running my SAP on Microsoft Azure. Is that how to think of this section of FlexBridge?
Absolutely. Provide ops metrics, surface those for real-time access. Accessing the service desk capabilities, integrating your service desk into the application so it's available for everyone, very easy to use, and also surfacing information on availability and capacity. So making sure those systems are always sized properly and running at optimal.
That's great. Thank you so much, Patrick. That was a tremendous actual live transformation plan put together in just under 10 minutes or so, moving that customer from their current state over to Microsoft Azure. We saw what the future state would look like, some of the risks and challenges. We saw what the benefits would look like in terms of that greater view and improved operating capability. And of course, we saw what the cost would be, both from the infrastructure side as well as the migration costs, and as I mentioned, had a view into the timeline. So that's fantastic. Patrick, before we go, I'd like to take the screen back from you and talk again to our audience about an offer that we have. So let's really not talk about next steps. Again, in this case, we went through really a simplified example of what we call an SAP transformation assessment, getting to that transformation plan. And so the next step is for you out in the audience listening live today or on the replay to do this for yourselves. As part of the SAP transformation assessment, you'll understand what your options are, and it can help determine your readiness for that SAP transformation. It works for different hyperscale clouds, as we mentioned today. We were very happy to show you Microsoft Azure. This process really only requires some basic information. Patrick shared that. it's basic system information, and we have a number of ways that we can get that from you when you're ready. And the results are available in just a few days. Obviously, the process here is fully automated. We then have our experts look at it and help you interpret some of these results and help kind of finalize that transformation plan with you. If you're interested, put your info in the chat, or if you're listening on replay, please follow up with us at info@proterra.com. Okay, Jamie, I think that is it. We tried to make your time limit here. I think we've come in, we put that transformation plan together, and would be very excited and very interested to hear from the customers or prospects on the phone here who are interested in assessment and would love to take others through this process like we've done with Patrick today.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. We hit our 20-minute mark. I appreciate everyone attending today. In the chat box, I did put links to both tomorrow's presentation to register for that. If you're not already, I see a few on here who are registered for tomorrow and Thursday. We will be diving into moving to HANA. And on Thursday, we'll be diving into moving to S4. On AWS or Azure. So definitely click those links and register today. Both of those segments will answer your questions about cost, project planning, timelines, and the requirements. So thank you so much for joining. Again, for more information, visit proterra.com and have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.